Hello! During this week I received several comments on my videos about a man who bought two apartments in Ukraine, one in Kiev and one in Kharkiv, and my subscribers asked me to comment on these two purchases. Then I received an email from my client, Kevin, who also asks to answer some questions regarding residence permit and these two apartments. And you can see his letter right here. I watched those two videos. Indeed, apartment in Kharkiv is sold at exceptionally perfect price. I will comment on these two apartments at the end of this video. I believe many of you would consider buying an apartment for an exceptionally good price anywhere in big cities of Ukraine like Kiev, Kharkiv, Lviv, Odessa, which you would be able to sell afterwards and earn money, right? But if something is too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And if you see a bargain price for any apartment in the center of big Ukrainian city, you do not have to be in a rush. As we have an anecdote in Ukraine, you need to be in rush only in two situations. First is when you are catching fleas. Fleas are pretty fast and you have to be in a rush and be pretty quick to catch them. And second situation when you have to be in a rush is when you are meeting somebody else's wife. Since husband can arrive at any time, you have to be very fast and you have to be in a rush. In all other cases, especially with investing in real estate in Ukraine, I would not be rushing no matter how good deal might seem like. Again, remember, if something is too good to be true, it is too good to be true. To our clients, we provide full service of checking apartment completely before you buy it. There are more than 10 checks included in this apartment check, and it depends where apartment is located, whether in the city, in which building apartment is located, when this building was built, how many owners this apartment had, if there are any registered people in the apartment, and of course we check background of the seller. And sometimes if apartment is very good and if it is located in an old building, you have to check several sellers that sold this apartment before. And since there is a lot of scam going on in real estate field in Ukraine, such check costs from about $700 US. And you would ask, why so expensive? And because many checks have to be performed. Sometimes we have to check several sellers who sold this apartment before if apartment is located in an old building. You can check more information about this service on our website, or you can email me anytime at my email address to find out more information about this service. We also strongly recommend that our representative visits Notary Public with you when you are signing deal and buying an apartment. I wanted to record this video a little bit later, but since many people are interested in buying apartments, I will record 5 most important things you should know before buying an apartment in Ukraine. And this is a part of my paid consultation. I provide it to you for free, of course. Trust me, more than 75% of realtors in Ukraine don't know this information. And more than 50% of lawyers in Ukraine will never tell you this information. Especially realtors. They are not qualified in Ukraine in 95% of all cases. Which brings us to the rule number 1 in buying apartment. Realtors are not your friends. They are not liable nor responsible for absolutely anything here. And this point is so important, so I will repeat it once again. Realtors, real estate agencies, real estate agents, individual realtors are not liable nor responsible for absolutely anything when they are selling apartment to you. And you must remember this point and always keep it in mind. In Ukraine, we don't have absolutely any law that regulates somehow realtors or real estate business overall. Also, we don't have absolutely any regulations about real estate agents. Anyone can work as a realtor in Ukraine without any special education. In fact, there is no realtor education in Ukraine at all. And any pretty girl can graduate from school and start working as a realtor. As some realtor courses say that no special skill is actually needed to sell an apartment in Ukraine. Realtor just needs to smile and show how happy she is to work with you. Big realtor agencies or private realtors provide officially only information services to you, and only information services. Officially, they collect information about sellers, advertise properties, and sell that information to potential buyers. Period. No liability whatsoever. Nobody checks absolutely anything. Even though big realtor companies say that you have to work with a big realtor agency and they have a law department, but actually that law department doesn't do anything. It is just a name, law department. That's it. Realtor will charge you commission of 4% to about 8% from the price of apartment, and that's only for information services. Realtor will be smiling and saying that everything is okay, apartment is okay, and you should buy this apartment as fast as possible. It is your sole right to agree to buy an apartment, check that everything is okay with it, check that everything is okay with the documents, with the seller, that seller is legitimate to sell this apartment, that apartment has not been unofficially rebuilt, etc., etc. Once deal is closed, apartment is bought by you, realtor doesn't care about anything at all. Realtor will not even tell you to register all utilities at your name. No need to say that. She sold the apartment or he sold the apartment, earned his commission, and that's it. Deal is done. Realtor will be smiling and will be happy to sell your apartment with problems, earning percentage of commission from you and sometimes even from the seller as well. And realtor will be smiling and persuading you to close this deal as fast as possible, because it is a bargain price and you should buy this apartment immediately. There is a lot of scam going on only from realtors in Ukraine. Once again, you have to be very careful with realtors or with real estate agencies in Ukraine, no matter how big or small they are. So, first point to remember, always to remember, never to trust a realtor in Ukraine. Never. Second point that you should consider are registered people in the apartment. Who are those people? In Ukraine, as well as in all ex-USSR countries, we have a so-called registration institute. It should have been forgotten a long time ago, but it is still in use. That means that every Ukrainian person or every resident of Ukraine must have a registration address. In our passports, we have a stamp where it says where you are registered. And it is a residential address. Without this residential address, you will not be able to get any medical assistance, any government assistance, you will not be able to open a bank account, and you will not be able to find a job, and etc., etc. So it is important, it is vitally important to have a registration address for every citizen in Ukraine. And every citizen actually has a registration address. You would ask, what if person doesn't have any apartment, doesn't own any apartment? And it's a good question, because in such way he will have to be registered in his parents' or relatives' apartment. If person doesn't have any relatives, any parents, and if he doesn't own any apartment, then he must get a certificate from migration office that he is homeless. But homeless people cannot get job here, cannot open bank account. Well, it is possible, but nobody will hire such person, and I'm sure that many, well, maybe 95% of banks will not open account for him. So you must keep in mind that every person has a registration address in Ukraine. By the way, if you get a permanent residence permit, you will also have a registration address in Ukraine. And even if you do not have an apartment, you still can have a residence permit in Ukraine. You would ask your friends maybe to register you somewhere, or registration address can be bought. There are companies that provide such service. And you must have a residential address. You cannot be registered, for example, in the hotel where you live or in the hostel where you live. So the apartment that you are buying, there may be people registered in that apartment. And it is very important, it is exceptionally important that these people will be removed from this apartment, removed from registration from this apartment before you buy it. At this point, many realtors will be smiling and will provide you with a signed document from owner of the apartment that owner is obliged to remove all those registered people within 15 or 30 days from when apartment is sold. You do not look at smiles of these realtors and just know that such document has absolutely no power and it can be used in a toilet if you run out of toilet paper. All people must be removed from registration in apartment before you make a purchase. Once again, and it is very important, all people must be removed from registration before you make payment for apartment and sign documents that apartment is yours. You never know who is the seller of the apartment, who is the owner of this apartment. Of course, it may be an honest person and may remove those people from registration in 15 or 30 days. But again, you should not trust the owner of the apartment. And it will be extremely hard to remove those people from registration by yourself. Those people are not owners of the apartment, but if person is registered in the apartment, it gives him the right to live in this apartment. And you don't want somebody to live in your apartment with you, of course. And there may be different situations, like a registered person may be in prison, for example, and before he gets out of prison, he cannot be removed from registration. Or this person can be an alcoholic and might be in a rehabilitation center. And to remove an alcoholic is very difficult even by court. Or this person may be a drug addict, or may be registered in a mental hospital. And it's very hard to remove such person from registration. Sometimes even it will be impossible to do. So once again, all people must be removed from registration in the apartment which you buy, and it must be done before you pay money for this apartment. Third, you have to be aware of the person from whom you buy the apartment. It happens quite often that person will be registered in a mental hospital or a psychiatric clinic. It may be happening that person is a drug addict or an ongoing alcoholic. Even if seller is in the process of rehabilitation from drugs or alcoholism, it is a very big red flag and you should not buy apartment from such person. For example, look at this person. If you take him to a barber, if you buy some good clothes, you will not be able to tell that he is an alcoholic. And actually this guy is a homeless alcoholic. Once you buy an apartment from such person, after 1 month, relatives would most probably fill in a petition with court, and in 98% court will agree that mentally ill person or a drug addict or an alcoholic acted not with a free will, not with his own free will. And in 95% buying procedure will be terminated by court. All because when this person was selling apartment, he could not understand and did not understand what he was doing. In such case, even if such person was registered in this apartment and if was removed from registration, he will be registered again in your apartment by law, I mean by court. And you will be, well, maybe not thrown out from your apartment immediately, but he can move and live with you. And of course, buying procedure may be terminated. And you would ask, what about money that you paid for this apartment? And that's a very good question. Money will have to be returned to you by law, but all your money will be spent by that time, and you will have just to sue an alcoholic or a drug addict or a mentally ill person, which will be extremely hard to do. And even if you succeed after paying a lot of money to lawyers and court's decision will be to pay all that sum back, you'll be able only to deduct money from this guy's salary, and it must be official salary, which will be about like maybe $200 per month if he will be working officially. But you will be able to deduct not more than 30%. So it will be about $60 per month. And if you buy an apartment that costs $30,000 to $40,000 US, you can just calculate for how long you will have to deduct if it is $60 per month. If this person doesn't work officially anywhere, well, of course, no deduction. Once again, you must be aware of the person from whom you buy an apartment, and you should see him in person, which brings us to the fourth point. And fourth point is power of attorney. Apartment may be sold with a power of attorney from maybe seller's relative or even seller's friend. You should know that it is absolutely legal to buy an apartment with a power of attorney. And it is okay if, for example, seller is somewhere in the United States, somewhere in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and he cannot come to Notary Public and sign the deal. But there must be a really strong reason why seller cannot come by himself and sign the documents. Excuses such as he is too busy, he has no time, his parents are sick, or he is in the hospital are not accepted, especially if he is in the hospital, because you never know which hospital it may be. And actually it is a very big red flag if owner of the apartment that you are buying is in the hospital. I would never buy such apartment, for example. Power of attorney may also be issued from owner of the apartment who is mentally ill and he is registered in a mental hospital, who is a drug addict, alcoholic, or who is rehabilitating from drugs or from alcoholism. It is the same as we talked in previous case. And relatives or maybe some lawyer may go to court after 30 or 60 days after you buy this apartment and file a petition, and court will terminate the buying procedure. And in such case, no apartment, no money. So once again, be very extremely careful when you're buying an apartment and seller is not present to sign the documents. Be very careful when power of attorney is used instead of seller by himself. Fifth very important point to consider is when you're buying an apartment which has been sold several times, especially which has been sold several times in the last 3 years. You must be extremely careful with such apartments. If apartment has been sold many times, like in the last 3 or 5 years, there may be some excuse for that. Or let's say not excuse, there may be a reason for that. But you have to investigate that reason very, very carefully, because such apartments are usually sold because it is a scam apartment. We are always checking such apartments and we are checking the history, the buying history of apartment. If apartment has been sold in last 5 years, let's say for 10 times, it is extremely hard to check every deal. And if it is, for example, a studio or a one-bedroom apartment, I would just recommend to stay away from such deal. It's just too expensive to check the background of all sellers and try to examine each particular deal. So it's pretty expensive and I would stay away from such apartment. Of course, if you're buying, for example, a house for, let's say, $200,000 that on the market costs about $400,000, then it's okay to investigate every buying deal in very big detail. Otherwise, do not bother. In 90% of cases, such change of ownership shows that something is not clean with the apartment, house or cottage. And once again, I wouldn't recommend buying such apartment. So once again, just check how many owners this apartment, the desired apartment, had in previous years. And if it is more than 5, stay away from this apartment, no matter how good deal is. Otherwise, you may be in trouble. There are, of course, many more things to consider when buying property in Ukraine. If this video becomes popular and gets many likes, I will record second, third, fourth, fifth, 6th, 7th part to this video. I know too many scams with real estate, and I can help my clients to buy an apartment which will be 99.8% scam free. Just trust me, many locals get scammed with real estate in Ukraine. And if there is a bargain price, you must investigate and check it really carefully. Why is it such a low price? Otherwise, you may just lose that all amount of money that you pay for apartment. So, if you are planning to buy an apartment, a house or cottage in Ukraine, or maybe a land, I will be glad to be of service to you. Feel free to write me on this email address and I will be able to provide you with expert consultation. And some of you asked me for my opinion about 2 apartments that American men bought in Kiev and in Kharkiv. My client wrote me this email and I got several more comments under my video. Even though some comments are not displayed, but I see them anyway. Some come to my email and I don't know why YouTube doesn't show these comments to the public under the video. But my client Kevin wrote me a pretty detailed email, so let me reply to him. So Kevin is planning to retire next year and buy an apartment in Kiev or Odessa, and he is exploring all information about real estate in Ukraine for the last years. From your professional point of view, please comment 2 videos of Johnny. He bought 2 apartments in Ukraine and you can watch his videos. Yes, I watched Johnny's videos. One apartment is in the center of Kiev and the other apartment is in the center of Kharkiv. So Kevin asks, isn't it expensive to buy such apartment in Kiev? No, Kevin, actually price for apartment, well, $145,000 for such 75 square meters apartment in the center of Kiev is not expensive. It is a market price for such apartment. Apartment is located on Basseinaya Street, and Basseinaya Street is like in the heart of Kiev. It's right in the center of the city. Perfect location. If you do not have a car, if you do not drive, then this apartment is just perfect for you, because in the center of Kiev it is very difficult to find parking, and usually parking is pretty expensive in the center of Kiev. So the price of this apartment is very good. So second question Kevin asks, what would you say about apartment in Kharkiv for $37,000? I asked my manager to watch this video pretty carefully, and actually apartment is located also in the center of Kharkiv. As far as I understood from that video, it is located on Dragomanova Street, which is also very center of Kharkiv, and it is very good location. Then Kevin asks if it is a perfect price. Yes, it is a perfect price for such apartment. I would say it is 25 or maybe 30% below the market price of an apartment in that area, and it's very well furnished and refurbished as well. Then he asks, how do you find such deals? There are bargain deals, and as I said before, as I said in this video, you have to be very careful with deals for bargain prices. This Johnny seems to be a professional investor, and when he says that he forgot his passport in Kiev, which, well, I wouldn't believe in that, because if you're a foreigner in Ukraine, you must carry a passport with you, and Johnny knows it as well, but that's a very good trick to say to a real estate agent that you forgot passport and you cannot sell deal right now. And it's very good that he is working with a lawyer in Kiev for buying apartment. I just wonder if lawyer checks all the information that I talked about in this video. But since he is working with a lawyer and he asked actually a seller of apartment to come to Kiev to sign all the documents, I think seller will not agree on that. And I think this apartment will not be bought by him, but let's see what happens. Apartment is sold with a really low price and they will find somebody to buy this apartment. And I think that something may not be right there because of this price, and a real estate agent may know about this, so maybe they will just find another person to whom to sell this apartment and not deal with lawyers in Kiev. Well, again, that's my opinion. How it will work out, I have no idea. We just have to see what will happen. Then Kevin asks, is it necessary to obtain residence permit in Ukraine? I remember you told me during consultation that it is not easy to get one. Can I live as a tourist in my apartment? Yes, you can live as a tourist in your apartment. It is not necessary to obtain a residence permit because it's quite expensive, and if you are planning to live in Ukraine maybe for like 3 months and then live for 3 months somewhere else, I wouldn't even consider getting a residence permit in Ukraine. Why? Because it is not easy to obtain one. Maybe you will have to start a company and you will have to pay taxes. You will have to spend money on opening the company, paying to the accountant, and then you have to prolong that residence permit, and it all costs money. So you can live as a tourist like for 90 days without any problem. Then you can leave from Ukraine to another place to another country for like 90 days, and then come back after 90 days and stay here for 90 days without any problems as well. If you're planning to live here for, let's say, half a year, you can actually live here for half a year without any residence permit, and when you just cross the border, you will have to pay a fine. It is not a big fine now, it's about, I think, 2-something thousand hryvnias, so it's less than $100. You just have to pay that fine and just say that you didn't know that you could not stay here for, let's say, longer than 90 days. No problem with that, and it would be much cheaper than obtaining residence permit and then prolonging it all the time. So that's my opinion, but everything is up to you. Then Kevin asks why Johnny says he will get residence permit by buying an apartment in Kiev. As I talked in this video, it is not possible to get residence permit only by buying an apartment. Buying an apartment is not investment, just watch that video and you will have all the answers. So probably Johnny is starting a business here in Ukraine, opens a company and will pay just minimal tax for salary and for salary of the accountant. So in that way, yes, maybe he will get a residence permit. But again, to register it as an investment and to move money as investment into Ukraine, time will pass. And I'm not sure if seller of the apartment will wait for all that time to sell apartment to Johnny or to sell it to somebody else. Maybe he already bought this apartment and maybe he will move just money as an investment and then spend it on some other apartment. Maybe it will be working like this. I don't know. So, but once again, price for apartment in Kiev is pretty good. Price for apartment in Kharkiv is exceptional. Let's see how it all goes. I hope you liked this video. If you really liked it, then like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And in the meantime, I wish you all to stay healthy and wealthy.